amount of conflict that has been building between Russia and Ukraine has reached its zenith. Explosions have started taking place at an extremely frequent rate. An unusual plot was devised by the Ukrainian army, and it came dangerously close to entrapping Russia. The question now is, what exactly did the Ukrainian army want to do? Which region seen an increase in the severity of the conflicts? In order to have a conversation on this, let's review the maps and brush up on our prior knowledge. The Russian army was halted before it could reach Kiev, after making significant progress in the operations that were launched from the east of Ukraine. The Russian army was only successful in occupying 4 districts in Ukraine during their invasion. After this stage, the Russian army, which had taken Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, entered a nightmarish phase of the conflict. During the counter-operations that the Ukrainian army initiated, it conducted raids in a variety of different places. The majority of the Russian tanks that were transported to Ukraine were eliminated by drones, operated by the Ukrainian military. The destruction of Russian ammo storage facilities. Because of this, the Russian army was unable to continue the ground campaign because none of the necessary equipment could be used. At this juncture, the army of Ukraine started formulating a significant strategy. The Russian military is successfully causing significant damage thanks to the plan that was executed today. The big plan that Ukraine has formulated is well received by military specialists. First, the Ukrainian army was successful in retaking the territory that Russia had taken in the Kherson region. This region was the largest regional capital that Russia conquered while they were in control of it. After the city of Kherson was freed, Ukraine gained the upper hand in terms of psychological dominance, because Russia endured its gravest setback in this conflict and won nothing. Throughout this procedure, Zelensky adhered to an incredibly excellent policy. The astute and audacious statement made by Zelensky from the very beginning of the war had an effect on the direction that the fight would take. When this conflict is done, there will be dozens of publications written by political scientists about how successful Zelensky's policies were. The first step that Zelensky took that was fruitful was making his declaration against the attempted invasion. The citizens of Ukraine had a great deal of anxiety on the outcome of this conflict. The words made by Zelensky inspired increasing levels of bravery and camaraderie among the Ukrainian people. As a comedian and screenwriter in the past, Zelensky was quite skilled at delivering motivational and uplifting speeches to the Ukrainian people, which helped improve morale and inspire them. Another of Zelensky's accomplishments was his skillful negotiations with members of NATO. After meeting with Zelensky, every world leader increased the amount of aid they were delivering to Ukraine. Russia sustained a significant amount of damage as a direct result of NATO member countries' delivery of weaponry. During his talks with his generals, Zelensky would also recommend highly critical strategies to implement. These methods were examined by intelligence officers and the Russian military, and they were subsequently approved. Following the conclusion of this meeting, the top-secret strategy was immediately put into action by the Ukrainian armed forces. As a result of implementing this approach, the majority of the Ukrainian army's military forces were withdrawn from Bakhmut. Bakhmut was not a very vital location for the overall strategy. However, the Russian army, which was losing on all fronts, believed that it could manufacture propaganda by achieving a victory on this front. This led to the Russian army's eventual victory. The plan that Ukraine has in place looked just like this. It is generally accepted that the Ukrainian armed forces removed their military presence from Bakhmut, which made it possible for Russia to gain ground in this region. Because when the Russian army began its campaign in this region, all of the artillery units that had been concealed by Ukraine became visible. Within a week, Russia suffered the loss of thousands of soldiers in this region. Russia was very certain that it would be able to take control of this territory. Because of this, the level of propaganda that was broadcast on Russian television networks increased significantly. Russia, on the other hand, was shown yet another lesson in humility as a result of the resistance put up by the Ukrainian army. Even after several weeks of trying, Russia, which has one of the most congested militaries in the world, has not been successful in capturing Bakhmut. In this area, the Ukrainian army is currently engaged in some truly historic operations. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense distributed photographs and provided specifics regarding the ongoing operations. Drones operated by Ukraine are always keeping tabs on Russian locations. After the Russian troops have established themselves in their position, the artillery units are provided with these coordinates. These are the coordinates of Russian targets that Ukrainian artillery units are currently destroying. The situation for Russia in this region is almost hopeless. The Russian force was hemmed in by soldiers from the Ukrainian army. All Russian targets in this area are now within the firing range of the artillery held by the Ukrainians. In the course of their operations in these regions, Ukrainian artillery units achieve a significant victory in as little as one day. Within the past day, the Russian army has suffered the loss of 510 service members in total. Since the beginning of the war, this was one of the highest numbers of deaths that have occurred. Russia is currently going through some of its worst hours in its entire history. During this conflict, the Russian army suffered more than 90,000 casualties across all branches of service. Why then is Russia continuing to maintain its presence in this area in the wake of such a crushing loss? The Russian press and government both made very brazen statements as a direct result of the trap that was set by the Ukrainian army. The Russian army, which had been defeated on all fronts, was hoping to redeem itself by prevailing in this front of the war in order to regain its reputation. In the event that Russia admits that it, too, was unsuccessful in the operation in Bakhmut, this may provoke significant responses from the Russian population. The resistance against the government of Russia is only growing stronger. The significant underperformance of Russia in the war is another factor that contributes to the escalation of these reactions. The people of Russia believe that Putin's misguided policies are to blame for the deaths of their soldiers, and they demand that Russia withdraw its forces immediately. Those who spread rumors about Putin are met with severe repercussions from it. The number of people serving time in prison for treasonous acts is on the rise. Nevertheless, this does not bring an end to the objections. Protests against Vladimir Putin are drawing an increasing number of participants in Russia. Putin's reputation takes a significant hit as a direct result of these actions. The consensus amongst specialists is that in the event that Putin loses in Bakhmut, he will be unable to continue serving as the leader of Russia. The Ukrainian army was successful in bringing about a significant amount of damage to Putin's political career by luring him into this trap. Putin is in a weaker position than he has ever been. Do you believe the plan the Ukraine has devised will be successful? What do you anticipate the outcomes of the conflicts in Bakhmut will be? Is it possible that Putin will step down as a result of this process? What do you think?